Hi everyone, and welcome to the actual recording of our Twitter session. So listen and learn. It was the 3 key steps to integrating Twitter into your communications platform. So we've had to re-record this episode due to the fact that we had some slight technical difficulties. It wouldn't be fun if we didn't have IT issues once in a while. So we're just going to go through a quick re-recording so everyone has the access to the content that we delivered a little while ago. So I'll introduce myself. My name's Gareth. And what we're going to go through today are 3 key tips to integrate your Twitter accounts into your PR and comms strategies. So what we're going to go over are some basic ways to understand the discussions in and around your organization. So I want to take you guys through a quick overview of Twitter and where it stands at the moment. And then the 3 tips we're going to look at are hashtags, keywords, and lists. And the whole idea of today is to obviously reduce that fear factor around Twitter. It's quite a crazy platform, but it's a really exciting one. And when harnessed correctly, it's got a lot of benefit for organizations, especially when it comes to understanding what's being said in and around your organization and getting involved in those discussions. So I'd like to give you guys a quick breakdown about Twitter in 2015. So as it stands, about 302 monthly active users, million monthly active users, not just 302, that would be crazy. 302 million monthly active users. In Australia, you're looking at about 3 million monthly active users. So it's about a third of the penetration of Facebook in Australia, but there's still quite a few people on the platform in Australia. It also tends to be a bit more of a business and work orientated platform, with 2 of the top 5 topics being business and technology on Twitter in Australia. You're looking at about 500 million tweets are sent out per day across the Twitter sphere. Now, that's a lot of noise. And so that's where a lot of the fear often comes from. You know, you've got 500 million tweets being sent around, floating around. So it's hard for us to sometimes get cut through. So we'll have a look at how to jump through and look at the tweets that are relevant to us and not that big slice, that 500 million. About 80% of Twitter users are active on mobile, so it's important to think about where people are tweeting, when they're tweeting, but also the content they're putting out. Also, about 77% of accounts are outside of the US. So this is really important for us in Australia because quite often that social media is accused of being very US-centric, especially Twitter, but it's not the case. But that also does mean that there's an awful lot of international news, international tweets that we can get hold of. So depending on your organization and your scope, you know, thinking globally, are there other users outside Australia that you can listen to, read their tweets, and find relevance for your organization? Now, this slide sort of talks to that big fear factor about Twitter and social media in general about being very scary. However, I think it's pretty awesome at the same time, so we'll talk through it. So what you'll find is your average article reaches half its total social referrals within about 6.5 hours on Twitter. So that means that half of the people who are going to retweet it or push it out, it's reached half of them in 6.5 hours. So, you know, if you're going to be putting out a press release or if you're getting involved in a discussion, it's probably not a good idea to go on a long lunch after you've pushed out or you've tweeted. Now, looking at about 9 hours on Facebook. So as you can understand, Twitter's very agile when it comes to the different platforms. Information disseminates very, very quickly on Twitter. So it's whilst it can be scary because it moves quite fast, it's a really, really great platform to get a lot of information. So if you want to be on top of the latest news, or if you want to be in and around discussions that are relevant to your organization, it's a fantastic platform to listen to those conversations. Now, The Guardian is one of the publications that really understands how important Twitter is, especially to breaking news. And so they came out and said Twitter has really helped The Guardian. They're at the heart of breaking news, and Twitter's the fastest way to break news these days. I'm sure we could all agree that news breaks faster on social. You don't have to do anything other than jumping on your own Twitter feed to see that the latest news is being tweeted out immediately. And that's one of the benefits of the chronological form of our Twitter feeds. We tend to get the most recent tweets being pushed out to us. So it's great for keeping abreast of the latest news. Now, if you were to compare that to traditional media, obviously it's a lot more agile, a lot quicker. So we need to take that into account when we're trying to research around conversations in and around our brand. Obviously, that does mean that there's a lot of pressure on people to tweet out and be at the fore of breaking news. I'm sure you all heard about that BBC journo who tweeted out that the Queen was dead. Now, effectively, that was just a training situation for the BBC, making sure they had updated all the information about Her Royal Highness. And one journalist was walking by, heard the news, and tweeted that out, or so the story goes. So the pressure to be first to the news is very much there. So we need to also take some of the Twitter content that we see and run our lenses over the top of it. Here's another great stat, and the fact that 64% of Twitter users follow a professional news account in some way, shape, or form. So this isn't just publications. This includes whether it's following a journalist, a breaking news, or a general news handle. 64% of Twitter users are going to Twitter for news. I know personally I use my Twitter account like an RSS feed. I'll jump on my mobile on the way to work. I'll see all the latest breaking news, whether it's sports, business, political, whatever it is. I know that the tweets at the top coming from these respectable handles is the relevant and up-to-date news. It's really often quite a great way to get retweets as well. So you can, for some of us who are obviously pushing out a lot of content to our audience, by following relevant journalist handles and relevant news handles, it can be a great way to pilfer out content and make sure we're curating it for our own audience. So that's a bit of a snapshot on Twitter and why it's so important to be a part of our comms strategy. But let's actually start talking about the 3 tips that you guys are here and listening to. So the first one is hashtags. So hashtags are a very misunderstood little symbol. As it turns out, it's not just a way for teens to express their adolescent angst. It's actually got some relevance to us as PR professionals, and as well as the general Twitter sphere. It's a really great and easy way to see conversations as well. And effectively what a hashtag will do, any tweet that brandishes the exact same hashtag will fall into a sort of forum. And I'll show you what I mean in 2 moments. So by using the similar hashtag, you create a thread or a discussion point around a topic. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in platform. We're going to have a look at how to use hashtags when it comes to our Twitter presence. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a look at one that would be relevant to me. So I'm just going to have a look at hashtag social media. So effectively, anyone who's thrown up a tweet and put in the exact hashtag social media, now you don't have to worry about caps here at all, these tweets fall down into this forum. Now these ones here are the top ones, but if I go to live, it's going to show me the most recent tweets by anyone who's used that hashtag on a public account. So this can be a really, really great way of staying on top of discussions, as I mentioned, in and around your organization. Anyone who's tweeting with that hashtag, you can see what their thoughts or opinions are, whether right from a top-line journalist right through to your everyday punter. Now, we really encourage this as a great way to see what's going on, to see what the most up-to-date comments are on a certain topic. As you can see down the left side as well, there are trending topics or trending hashtags as well. So if you wanted to jump on and see the latest about Bachelor in Paradise, I know I certainly do, you could jump on there and have a look at everything that's being said in and around that discussion. One thing, it is very important to jump on and just have a look at the different types of tweets that are being used, are being sent out in that hashtag, and not just jump on it because you think it might sound relevant. So really, this is a great place to make sure that we're on top of any breaking and relevant information. So that's hashtags. Really great way, as mentioned, to just have a look at the different discussions on Twitter. But the next way, as mentioned, is keywords. Now, the great thing about Twitter, besides being a nice, fast-paced platform, is the fact that as long as persons put out a tweet on an open account, it's pretty much searchable. Most people don't change that setting as well, so it means that anyone who puts out a tweet, whether in Australia or overseas, in most cases you'll be able to see that person's tweet if you're searching for it. So once again, if you come up to the search bar, you can throw in any keywords and search tweets that are brandishing that topic. So once again, I could just punch in social media. Of course, I'd want to spell it right. Type in social media. Unlike the hashtag, where they had to have that exact hashtag in their tweet, this will just come up with tweets that are pertaining to social media. Once again, this is a really, really effective way to nut down and have a look at conversations that are relevant to you. Tweets that are being had out from any handle around the world, but obviously there's a really, really powerful tool here where you can get a little bit more specific. If you come down to the right, you can begin to narrow down your search based on accounts, ones that have photos or videos, etc. But down the bottom here is a really powerful tool on Twitter, the advanced search. Now what this is going to let you do is really cut through that 500 million tweets that are sent out every day and find ones that are actually relevant to what you want to talk about, or at least relevant to a discussion that you are interested in. Now, as you can see, there's several different fields here for this advanced search. So, for example, if I was to go along my what I was talking about earlier, I actually might want to have the exact phrase as social media. But depending on how people talk within your industry, you might want to adapt that. And I might want to say any words such as LinkedIn or Facebook, but I want to exclude any tweets that have the word Instagram in it. I can also pull out ones which have a specific hashtag, although, to be honest, in that case, I'd probably just jump onto that hashtag directly unless I really wanted to get down to some finer details. And if you are searching for particular languages, you can most definitely do that as well. Under the people section of the search, you can make this so you can actually search for people from specific accounts or to specific accounts. If there's a particular thought leader or journalist that you want to really find out a little bit more of the conversations that are being had with or from them, you can most definitely do that here. You can also jump down to places that are near you, so you can actually make it a bit more geo-specific. Unfortunately, I've got my geo settings locked down on my browser, but if you wanted to make to find tweets that are only relevant to a certain area near you, you can most definitely do that here as well. In the case that you want to find tweets from a particular point in time, you can search via date as well. So if I wanted to, I could say from the 2nd to the 9th, so over a week span, I just want to find out any tweet using the term social media that's relevant to LinkedIn or Facebook, but not Instagram. And so I can make it just tweets from this last week. So this means that you can obviously get a little bit more control over when the tweets are that you're trying to search for. Otherwise, you could pull up an awful lot of results, and perhaps you wanted one from a particular time frame. So it may be a very, very relevant way to hone in on your search. Down the bottom, you have a couple of other ways that you can eliminate or target different tweets. Now, the first two ones here where it says positive and negative, now that's referring to sentiment. So what Twitter will try to do is work out whether a tweet was of positive or negative sentiment. We tend to encourage against using these forms of narrowing it down on Twitter itself, because Twitter being a very international platform and Australians having a little bit of a sarcastic tone to their tweets occasionally, if you were to click positive, you may not always get positive remarks, especially with sarcasm. And same with profanity. Whilst we try to obviously eliminate as much profanity that we see on Twitter, occasionally it can just be used as an emphasis in Australia. So we tend to encourage people not to search via sentiment. The best way to work out sentiment is by running the human eye over it when it comes to Twitter's sentiment rating. Now you can also search just for tweets that were a question, so ones that are brandishing a question mark at some stage. And you can, if you want, include retweets. I personally, when I search, I only want to see the original tweet because I like to see the original content behind it, as well as it tends to make it a little bit more relevant. However, if you want to see continued conversation, sometimes retweets can be a great way of looking at what other people are saying about that tweet itself. So once you've got all your parameters set up and you know you've got a good idea about what you're searching for, hit that search button and it's going to pull out any search results that are relevant to what I've thrown in there. So once again, click onto live and it's going to pull up a list of all of those tweets that were relevant to social media, including the words LinkedIn or Facebook, but not Instagram, and within that time frame. So it's a great way to get a good snapshot about the different tweets that are being had in and around conversations. Now, one really important aspect of this, whilst this is a little bit on the heavy side of work, if you go down to more options, you can click on Save this search. Now, what that will allow you to do is save your specific search so that each time you come back into your Twitter account, you can run that search again and again. Obviously, though, if you've got a time bound on it, so you said from the 2nd to the 9th of August, you will only be retrieving those same results over and over again. But if you're trying to get the most recent ones, it can be a great way of jumping back in and seeing, once again, the most recent tweets in and around a certain conversation. So that's how you could use keywords from searching from a Twitter point of view. However, you can always use different monitoring tools, which we'll talk about in 2 seconds. We do encourage you to think outside the standard keyword, though. I'm sure we all have different keywords we think about that are relevant to our organization or the people within our business. But we always encourage thinking just a little bit outside that. And a great example is Hilton Suggests. Now, Hilton Suggests is a Twitter handle from Hilton Hotels. And what it's all about is really providing great experiences online for people who may and may not be actually one of their customers. So here's an example. LT Houston, as you can see there in that top part of the tweet, has sent out good places to eat near the Magnolia Hotel, downtown Dallas for Saturday. Now, if you notice, he's not put a hashtag in. He's not put this at a specific handle, so he's not targeting any particular businesses on Twitter. He's just thrown that tweet up and out there to his followers. So he's just asking his followers to provide him a suggestion. Now, Hilton Suggests has probably got listening tools set up most likely around competitor hotels such as Magnolia Hotel, and possibly even specific to geographical areas so that relevant people within their business can then come back and provide suggestions. So what they've done is they've picked this tweet up and they've gone, fantastic, we'll listen to LT Houston, Wild Salsa on Main, and Campese's on Elm are awesome, both within walking distance from your hotel, and hashtag Dallas. And a nice enjoy message towards the end there. So they've been monitoring these conversations, once again, in and around discussions that are relevant to their business, and have just jumped in and provided a great suggestion to LT Houston. So one of the really great, powerful things about Twitter, because those tweets or those 500 million tweets are out there in the Twitter sphere for anyone to read, we can get engaged in discussions even when the conversation isn't aimed directly at us. So it's a great way of engaging with other Twitter users. As an example, we have our Buzz Numbers tool. And so this is apologize for the slightly blurry slide. This is an example about how you could monitor conversations that are relevant to you. Now, these will pull them out for us. We've got them set up on Twitter, and so we'll pull out any tweets that are relevant to some of the keywords that we're looking at. If you look down the right side as well, you've got the smiley face right through the frown face, and that's talking about sentiment. When it comes to our platform, we do tend to take sentiment a bit more seriously because you can actually alter the sentiment. So if you notice that a tweet has got a negative sentiment rating, but it's actually just a little bit of sarcasm, you can alter that. And the longer that you actually use the platform, it will begin to pretty much learn, not quite like Skynet out of Terminator, but begin to learn the different tweeting in and around your organization. So it will begin to adapt that sentiment rating to your account. But we always encourage monitoring Twitter in one way, shape, or form. You can do it through the advanced search, like I mentioned, but you're going to have to go back into Twitter quite regularly, or you can do it by using a monitoring tool such as Buzz Numbers. So the third tip to integrating Twitter into your comms strategy is using Twitter lists. Like I mentioned, there's 500 million tweets. I know I've said that a few times already, but that's a big number, 500 million tweets per day. And for some of our Twitter accounts, we follow a lot of different users as well. We might follow similar organizations, or we might be some of that 64% that follow one or multiple different news handles. And so we've got a lot of people filling up our Twitter feed. Now, what we want to do is use Twitter lists to curate a group of Twitter users that may fall into a specific list, which allows us to then jump in and only see tweets from those handles. Now, to illustrate this, I'm going to jump back in platform and onto our iSent-You2 social account and show you how to use a Twitter list. So if I was to go to our Twitter page, you'll see here we've got 3 lists. So I'm going to jump in here. Now, there are 2 ways you can set up your lists. You could set up a private, or you could set up a public list. I'll give you an example of the private list first. So we've got a To Socialist list here. Now, this is a list of the 6 current employees that use their Twitter accounts to tweet wonderful business news, etc., and things that are relevant to social media and to social through their handles. And so I can click on here, and I can see all tweets that have come from, and retweets that have come from myself, Richard, Jason, and they're all packaged up here in this one little list. Now, this can be a fantastic way to condense and curate information from specific thought leaders within your industry, or it could even be just similar organizations that you often want to keep tracks on. Or for some of our businesses, you can even create a list of competitors. When you create a private list, though, only you can see that list, and people that get added to it won't receive a notification. Underneath, though, we've got an example of two open lists. Now, if you look at the bottom one, the social media list, that's actually by ABC News 24. So ABC News 24 has actually created this list of the 13 social media handles they feel are relevant, and we've actually gone over and we've pinched that list and subscribed to it. It's one of the great examples of if you've created a fantastic list with a bunch of thought leaders and some really good content, then people may just start subscribing to your list because you've done all the great legwork for them. Now, I will say that if you add someone to a public list, they will get a notification that you've done that. So if I was to jump into ABC News 24, I can have a look at all the tweets from those handles that they've thought are the most relevant when it comes to social media. Now, the other thing that you can do to, if you want to get down to a much finer level, once you've got your Twitter list, if you want to, you can even turn on mobile notifications for that particular handle. Now, this means that every time that person tweets, if you've got your Twitter account put through the app on your smartphone, you'll receive a notification for every time that person tweets. Now, we'll take this with a bit of a grain of salt because that's fantastic if you've got someone who's incredibly hyper-relevant to your audience and to your organization. Every time they tweet, it's something you want to hear. However, you need to sort of marry that up against the fact that sometimes people tweet a lot. And if you're receiving a tweet for every single time, a notification for every single time that person tweets, for some of us, it might drive us a little bit insane. But it's a good way, if there is someone who's incredibly relevant to your organization or to your conversations, you can be notified every single time they tweet. So guys, they're the 3 key tips to integrating Twitter into your PR and comms strategy. So like we said, the hashtags are a great way to just jump into a forum conversation and see what tweets are being had about a specific topic. Using keywords are a great way to sort of widen that search and listening to conversations from a wider nature, but once again, about specific discussions that are relevant to your organization. And finally, we looked at lists. I really encourage you guys to set up a couple lists of specific handles that you feel are real thought leadership within your industry. That way you can even jump in there, retweet their content, push it out to your audience, and be right on top of everything that's going on Twitter. Like we said, the fact that it's wonderful and chronological means that you obviously want to stay abreast of everything that's going on, but it's a great way just to put your ear to the ground and hear about those discussions that have been happening in and around your organization. So guys, that brings us to the end of this webinar. Now, we did have some questions from when we were doing it live, so I wanted just to tick those off so that those people who asked those questions had those answers ready for them. Now, the first one was how many lists can you have? Now, it used to be 20, but now you can have up to 1,000 Twitter lists. To be honest, I think that sort of dilutes the purpose of it. You want to have as many as are really relevant to you. If you can cut down the noise and you can identify a specific number of handles that are relevant to you with just 3 or 4 Twitter lists, fantastic. But you can go crazy if you really want to. Got a question, what's the difference between a retweet and a quote tweet? Now, that's a really cool question. I'll jump back in platform to show you guys an example of that. So a retweet is pretty much what's been around since the beginning of Twitter. And so if I was to go back to my hashtag of social media, a retweet, if I was to select someone's tweet, such as this one from Inbound Marketing, I could just retweet that out by hitting this retweet button here, and it would send out their exact tweet to my audience. However, if I want to, I can do what's called a quote tweet, and I can put a little bit of information up here, and I'm limited to 117 characters. We tend to encourage you to do a quote tweet because that means that you can put your own lens over the top of someone else's tweet. So once again, if you had a Twitter list set up of really relevant journos to you, you could jump into that list, maybe find something that's relevant to your audience, quote tweet that out, but put your own lens over the top of it, so it makes it hyper relevant to your audience. How many in a list as a maximum? So you can actually have up to 5,000 handles within a list. Once again, though, I feel that sort of dilutes the purpose of having a list. And so you don't want to have too many handles. We usually keep it to about 10 to 15 because you want to make sure that the list you've got is relevant. So you're only getting good quality content through there. The other question we got was, how often should I log on to Twitter? Now, that's an interesting question. It's a little bit of a how long's a piece of string question because, let's face it, it really depends on how much activity there is on Twitter that's relevant to you and your organization. But definitely at the beginning, once you start setting up a couple of lists, maybe set up a search or two that you save, jumping on a couple of times a day is a great way just to see how much activity is in your industry. Twitter, like I said, it's very fast-paced, and there's a lot of people, because it's so easy to tweet out, there's a lot of content that gets put out and about. So it's best to just jump on at first and have a little bit of a look about how much conversation is being had, but then scale it back, scale it up, depending on how much activity there is for you.